everybody, it's Monday, April 18th, and that means it's time for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, Nonprofit Conversations. I'm one of your hosts, Cecilia Sapp. I'm the principal and founder of Root Tulips Consulting, and I'm here with my friend and co-host, Agnes. I'm going to throw it over to Agnes to say hello and introduce herself.
That's great. Thank you, Cecilia. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global audience, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Agnes Amos Coleman. I'm an association executive. Over to you, Cecilia.
Great. Thank you, Agnes. And we're really excited. We've had a lot of first-time guests this year, and we have another one this week who should have been here sooner. Scott Oser, who is an expert in association membership issues. And Scott's going to talk with us today about the importance of new member onboarding programs. But first, we're going to throw it over to Scott to say hello and tell our audience a little about himself.
Thanks, Cecilia. I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here today. My name, as Cecilia mentioned, is Scott Oser, and my company is brilliantly, creatively named Scott Oser Associates. What we do is we help associations with their marketing and sales needs. We also do some membership recruitment and retention. And I'm really excited to talk about new member onboarding today, just because it is such an important topic in the association space.
It's great. And we're going to dive right in, Scott. So as you know, we have a global audience as well. So could you quickly explain what new member onboarding is first, and then tell us why it's so important for that member experience?
Sure. Not to simplify it too much, but new member onboarding is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's when somebody joins the association, how do you welcome them into the organization? How do you make them feel involved? How do you make them feel part of the community? And honestly, that is why it is so important. I feel that in membership-based organizations like associations, many members, not all, but many members want to feel part of that community. Part of the reason they're joining is to be engaged, is to be part of that community. So that new member onboarding process is how you're welcoming into that community. Not necessarily selling to them, because you probably don't want to just start selling stuff to them right away, but it's more important to make them feel part of the organization, part of the community, and get them engaged.
Wow, that's a great overview and a great summary of why it's important. So I'm going to throw it over to Agnes because I know she has questions.
Yeah, thanks, Cecilia. You know, you said something earlier on, Scott, about engagement. And my question to you, based on your expertise in this field, is that how do we help our members connect with other members? Because it's that member-to-member engagement, because I know it's a huge part of onboarding. And I want to kind of get your sense on this, because that's the value of membership. They join membership associations because they want to connect with other members. They want to find out what like-minded individuals like themselves are doing. So can you just share with us how we can help them get there as part of our member onboarding process?
Of course, there are lots of different ways, but I would say that some of the most prevalent that I have seen, and some of the ones that work the best, could be a mentor program. If you have a mentorship program at your association, that could be very well received and it could be very valuable. One of the challenges with a mentor program is just that that's a one-to-one connection, right? So you're not going to reach the masses. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to know 50 members the next day. You're going to know your mentor and or mentee, but it can still be very valuable because your mentor or mentee could also know other people. So they can help you get introduced to others. And it would just go more or less one at a time, which is a little bit slow, but it's also a great way to connect it, to really create a true connection. Most associations nowadays have online communities. And so online communities can be a fantastic way, whether it's a private or it's a public, can be a great way to introduce members to other members, to share subject matter expertise, to get advice, to get recommendations. I think that that's another great way to do it. And then the last one that I'm going to mention right now is really truly member to member. So whether it be like a committees and communities and councils, those kind of things, have them reach out to new members, have them help in your onboarding process so that right off the bat, your members, your new members get to know and be introduced to people who are already well entrenched in the organization and understand it very well. So again, that's sort of smaller, and that could be one at a time, and it's going to have to be one at a time. But having current members, volunteers reach out, or volunteers, chapters, components, those kind of things, have the people on those different levels reach out to these new members can be a great way to just sort of get them into the fold right away.
Those are all great ideas too, because I know a lot of membership associations do have chapters and committees and special interest groups. So those are all great ways to get an individual interested and connect it with people. And what I was thinking when I was listening to you share all the great tips is we've all been around long enough to know that we used to do those member mailings, like new member kit. You have to mail the new member kit with a letter, and it might be a 2-pocket folder, and it has like all kinds of stuff in it that falls out when you open it. Well, I don't think many people do that anymore. So when it comes to new member kits, Scott, what's kind of the trend right now? Is it all digital, or is it phone calls, emails? What are we doing in that area?
I think you're right. Well, you're right and a little bit off a little bit on that. So yeah, I think there are still plenty of associations that are sending out what I call the hernia kit, right? It's like they package everything that they could possibly send to you into a box or into a folder or into whatever, and they send it to you, and you pick it up, and it's so heavy you get a hernia. And then what you're doing is you're picking it up and just putting it on a shelf. You're not doing anything with it because it's completely overwhelming. But I think that there are still plenty of associations that do it. Why do they do it? Because it's always been done. One of the worst reasons to do something, but they're doing it because it's always been done. And maybe once or twice a year, they get a comment from 1 or 2 members that say, hey, we appreciate you sending that. And because 1 or 2 members say that, they tend to go, okay, cool, let's keep on doing it. But they're spending $8, $10, $15 per package, per kit to send these things out. So there's no way they're getting the value. So I would actually recommend you survey and talk to your members when you're sending that to see if they actually are using anything in there, to see if they feel any value. And if they're not expressing value in getting the hernia kit, getting that new member package, I would stop doing it. And I think a lot of associations have stopped doing it. And what they're doing is they're really creating, a lot of them are creating more of a new member onboarding program. It will be not just one and done, not just a thank you for joining welcome letter or email that comes as an automated reply once you get the dues in. But they're also then doing things that you mentioned, Cecilia. They're doing phone calls, right? They're having volunteers or they're having their staff pick up the phone and welcome folks and ask them, why did you join? And tell them, here are a couple of things, because one of the other negatives of the hernia kit is that it's too much stuff. It's too much information and it's overwhelming. So the trend now is really to sort of figure out and prioritize what you want your members to know about first, second, third, and then slowly feed it to them. So that way they get that information and they can actually digest the information. Because what you don't want, and I've seen this before, where I remember I did a presentation a little while ago, and I asked before I did it for people to send me samples of their new member onboarding email. And one of the emails that I received asked them to do like 15 things. And I was like, seriously, no one is going to do 15 things. It's just too much. And they're going to read a quarter of the way through the letter and go, you've asked me to do this and this and this and this and this and this, and then this and this and this. And it's just not going to happen. So, kind of to sum up, what associations are doing and what membership organizations are doing is they're making it multi-touch and they're making it multi-channel. So it's not just a letter. I think that I was reading some research just the other day in preparation for this, and I saw that associations in this survey were saying that the members did not find a lot of value in receiving a letter. I disagree. Just by the fact that they know they received the letter, that has value, in my opinion, because it gets the association in front of them. It shows them that the association is doing something. Whether they read the letter and act on it or not, I still think that does have value, because email is really where everybody is going. Everybody's doing a multi-step approach and using multiple emails with different messages and different things that they want the association members to do. But we all get so much email. We get so much email that I feel like it's getting lost. And so it really is, to kind of sum up again, it's multi-touch, it's multi-message, and it's multi-channel. And so that's where it's really going. It's spread out across the first either 6 months or the first year of a membership. Mm-hmm. And that way people are able to digest what you're trying to tell them, and also get in front of them multiple times so that you feel like the association is always present and is always part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Agnes. That's okay.
I was just going to say, you touched on a lot of points that kind of resonate with me, and that kind of just triggered another thought process beyond onboarding, of course, is establishing ongoing relationship with our members, whether they're onboarding or whether they're already full members. And some of your touch points are really very key, but can you help us understand a lot more as far as what are some of the ideas and strategies that we can employ in addition to what you just shared in helping us to build and establish that relationship with our members beyond onboarding, of course?
Of course. I don't think it needs to be that different than what you're doing for the new members, but the messaging needs to be different. It needs to be, as an established, you need to understand the needs and where your established members are, either in their careers or with the association, and therefore what their needs are and how you serve them. It's going to be slightly differently, not always differently, but it's going to be not totally different, but it's going to be slightly different than what the new members want. Like, you don't need to tell an existing member to go in and log in and set up their account online, right? That's already been done. I would hope anyways that it's already been done by an existing member. So you don't need to ask them to do that, but you may want them to be, if they're not involved in a committee or a council, you may want them to get involved in the committee or a council right away. That's something you may want them to do. If there's a mentorship program and somebody's been a member for 10 years, maybe that's the man or woman or person that you want to be a mentor. So it's a lot of the same types of activities, but your messages need to change based on the needs of the members at that time and that stage in their membership, and maybe even if you can do it in that stage in their career, because both of those things are different criteria or different characteristics that will change the way that you message to these people and the type of information and the type of communication you're going to send their way.
Well, and you've hit on some really good points there, Scott, that jump out at me about the need to get to know our members as individuals. It's very easy to do the mass email. It's very easy to say, oh, hey, everyone go sign in the online community. But it takes a little bit of effort to find out where people are in their career, which is an excellent point. I'm a big believer in that entry points by career arc. Like, are you a new member? Have you been around for a while, like you mentioned, or where are you in the industry or profession? Are you new to the profession or industry? Have you been around that industry or profession for a while? How often do you go to meetings? Those are the ways that we can direct people to get the most out of their membership. And it starts with onboarding, but I guess in a way, onboarding goes on forever. At least we hope it does.
Yes.
So this kind of thing. So what are some tips you might share, Scott, for people to try to get to know their members a little more as individuals? And then you can steer those communications and activities toward them that, where they might benefit the most or be able to help someone else the most.
Well, the first thing you need to start with is having a technology system. We'll just say an AMS, even though I know now people are using CRMs and other type things as a membership database. But you need your technology to be able to store that information is the first thing, right? If you collect it on a piece of paper on your desk, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. If you collect it with an Excel spreadsheet, a little bit better, but you're still probably not going to do a lot with it. So you need to make sure that your database, your membership database, allows you to collect the type of information. You also need to start with what type of information and data on your members is going to be valuable, because you can't collect everything from them. They're not going to want to give you everything, and not everything is going to be valuable. So what do you need to know? What do you want to know? Is it number of years in the industry? Does age give you something? Is age going to give you some sort of evidence of give you a data point that you might want to use? There's a million different things that we can do. Cecilia, you mentioned going to meetings and things like that. I would hope I know this is not true. I would hope that your different segments of your database talk to each other. So you could say that Cecilia and Agnes Cecilia has attended our annual conference, Agnes has not. So we maybe want to message them a little bit differently. But not all technology is set up where everything plays well together. But so that's sort of the basics. You can't target, you can't segment unless your technology is set up to do that. And then how do you get that information? You can do it as part of your onboarding process. I have seen this before. I don't recommend it, where the membership application asks all those data point questions. And they try to get you to fill those out at the very, very beginning. Personally, my experience has been that the more questions you ask them, the less likely they are to respond. I think trade associations, because it is an organizational join, they may be more, and it's typically more expensive. It's not as, it's a lot more, it can be a lot more of a thought out process than a transactional one or a reactional one, like it might be as an individual membership organization. But they may be willing to, and I've seen that they're more likely to fill out that information. What are your revenues? You know, what part of the industry do you play in? And answer a lot of questions. I still don't recommend that you do that right in your membership application, but I found that that's a little bit more likely to happen and a little bit more likely to be used by the new member. But, but so slowly during your new member onboarding process, you can start asking them questions. You can, one of the things that you can do is push them, if it's stored in your database, you can push them to register. I mean, I think that's one of the key things that you always want your members to do is register within your online system. So that way you have a username and a password and you have access to your own member record, right? Cecilia switches jobs. All right, well, I might not know as a staff person that Cecilia had switched jobs, but assuming that she's staying in the field and she wants to make sure that her membership is kept current, Cecilia, you can now go in and change your address and change your company and do those sorts of things. But the other thing that you can do is you can make it private yet public, meaning it's private to the rest of the world, but it's public to the member, and the member can add, all right, I've been in the industry for 1 to 3 years, for 3 to 5 years, for however many years. That kind of information you can get. The other thing that I've seen becoming a lot more prevalent recently are 1 and 2 question surveys that are sent out to members. So you could ask, how many years have you been in the industry? And you could have that. And it's just a one short micro survey, makes it very, very simple for somebody to answer. They just click on it and you do that so that it doesn't take a lot of time. Because what I have found is that members aren't going to commit a ton of time to filling out that information. But if you do it in bits and pieces and you do it in chunks and you're going to get it, the downside of that is that it takes time, right? It takes a longer period of time than if you could throw 25 questions at somebody and they would answer them all at once. But the reality is they're not going to answer it. So I think it's better to take it slowly and get little bits and pieces at a time, as opposed to get nothing, which you might get if you send 25 questions their way.
Yeah. And I think that's a great technique and way to do it, Scott. I agree with that. And I recommend that to a lot of people as well. And I'm just kind of laughing to myself because I'm remembering the bad old days when we'd print out on paper everything about an individual in the database and mail it to them and ask them to please correct it because everybody wants their name spelled right. And then you'd get like 8,000 things you had to review and put back in the database. But good times, folks. Good times. Bad old days. So, well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been a very densely packed episode with lots of good advice and tips. And we really appreciate that. We'll definitely have to have you back to talk about another aspect of membership. So before we wrap up for this episode, Agnes, any closing thoughts?
No, I think it's been very fascinating discussion, actually, because member onboarding is definitely the foundation of our associations. And if we can get it right at first, I think that we have a greater chance of success. And I like how the discussion is kind of geared around removing that obstacle for our new members and even for our existing members. I think it's very important. So Scott, thank you for all your great insights on this. And I do agree with Cecilia, we'll have you back. We want to talk about the technology side of things next time when you come, because I think that there is value here in using technology to help streamline some of these headaches that we have. And I think you've touched on that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm just laughing because we all know, we've all been through at least one bad data migration, right?
Oh, yeah.
Into another. So that's great. Well, so Scott, we always like to ask our guests for a closing thought. What is the one thing you'd like the audience to take away today about new member onboarding? And then if they wanted to follow up with you and talk more, what's the best way to get in touch?
Sure. I think the main thing, we talked about a lot of details about doing multi-channel, multi-touch, and multi can be stressful to people, right? It seems like it's a lot. Not everybody's going to have the technology or going to have the human or the financial resources to do a ton from day one. But member onboarding processes have proven that they work, that they increase engagement and that they increase renewal. So if you're not doing something, my message to take away from this is do something. Doesn't matter if it's sending off 2 emails, an email the first month and an email the third month, an email the first month, an email the sixth month. Whatever it is, it's going to improve your relationships with your members. So the bottom line is you need to do something. You may not be able to do everything that you want to do, but do something. So that is the main message, is do something. Do a new member onboarding program. Even if it's really simple, make one, do one. How do they find me? Again, my brilliantly named company is Scott Oser Associates. So you can find me at scottoserassociates.com. And my email address, also brilliantly created, is scott@scottoserassociates.com. So if you want to reach out to me, you can get me that way too.
That's great. Thanks so much, Scott. It's been a great conversation. And as Agnes said, we look forward to having you back. But unfortunately, we have to go rogue for now. But we'll be back next week with another exciting episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, Nonprofit Conversations. But in the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting, check out our website, roguetulips.com, and find out how we can help your organization grow. And if you're looking for CAE education, whether you're getting ready to take the exam for the first time or you're looking for some CAE renewal credits, check out our education arm, the 501c League. And you can find more about the league at the 501cleague.net. We are a leader in ethics education and CAE prep. So that's all for now. Find us on your favorite podcast service, whether it's Amazon Music, Google, Apple, or Spotify. We're everywhere now. So we hope to see you out there in the virtual world. Bye for now, everyone.